the NEC had an extensive discussion, which was rich and reflective, focusing on the task of renewal and rebuilding of the ANC in those two provinces, as well as strengthening leadership. It was agreed that unity of the ANC should be our overriding objective. And to achieve this, we must ensure that the leaders of the ANC at all levels work together, renewing and building organization together. The NEC agreed that the state of organization in all our provinces requires urgent action following the loss of elections. However, the loss the ANC suffered in the two key provinces required immediate action, as the two provinces were not only the most populous, but economic hubs of the country. There were extensive debates on the action that needs to be taken to strengthen the ANC in the two provinces. The NEC agreed that not taking an action was not an option. There were extensive discussions on the issue of the dissolution of the PECs or how best they can be strengthened. The NEC agreed that the overriding objective is how the ANC can be strengthened and rebuilt in the two provinces. And strengthening the ANC, the NEC agreed that whatever action that will be taken should be based on key principles: fostering the unity of the organization, focusing on rebuilding the structures of the organization, ensuring that the renewal process continues, focusing on political education as well as the foundational course, ensuring that the leaders work together. NEC members assist with the rebuilding of our branches in all provinces, utilizing the capabilities of past leaders both nationally and provincially in the rebuilding process.
Right, for more on that specific briefing, we're joined by SABC News senior reporter Samkele Maseko. Good afternoon, Samkele. Quite a lot to get through. So today we understood that the ANC has resolved to reconfigure the PECs of both Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. Just talk us through that briefing and what exactly they meant by reconfiguring these two.
In reconfiguration, the Secretary-General of the ANC essentially meant that reconfiguration encompasses both dissolution and reinforcement, meaning that in line with the ANC's constitution of clause 12, subsection 12.2.4, which speaks about the suspension of structures for a period of 3 months, and ultimately there is another option of a dissolution of a structure, which is dissolvement or disbanding of a structure, and putting in an interim structure which will then take the party to conference within a stipulated period of a 9-month period. That will be essentially how this reconfiguration of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng will be implemented, where some faces within the current Provincial Executive Committee and officials of the provinces will be retained, but they will be reinforced with other individuals who may not be in the PEC of the party, but in the terminology of how this structure will be termed, whether it will be a Provincial Executive Committee or a provincial task team. He is unclear on that, but as the ANC constitution stipulates that once a structure is elected, you can't really chop and change that structure in putting Mfundo Mabalane as a deputy chairperson without the branches of the party having gone to conference and elected Mfundo Mabalane. So effectively, if you've got to reconfigure this structure or reconfiguration, which is basically to change shape, to change the outlook of the party, you would first essentially have to dissolve and then reconfigure, which is the interpretation the Secretary-General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, understands this particular resolution of the NEC to be. But there are divergent views on the reconfiguration. There are those who are saying that it is in fact a reinforcement, meaning that additional people will be brought in. For instance, you go to a province like KwaZulu-Natal, a former individual like the former provincial secretary of that province, Sipho Qabashe, would then be brought in to assist Begim Tolo in the SGO, in the outlook of how the provincial secretary's office is meant to look and meant to operate in the province of KwaZulu-Natal.
So that's potentially how it could look like, where you would still retain the provincial secretary or perhaps the chairperson as well.
It could be like that. In summary, the president of the ANC essentially said that, for example, you would essentially may keep Panyaza Lesufi as the convener of the province, then have someone come in as the coordinator, or you keep TK Ngiza as the coordinator of the province, subsequent to the same as provincial secretary. Then you have Joe Mbisi, the late, you have, for instance, Lesego Makubela as a convener of the province of the ANC in Gauteng, or vice versa. Or in KwaZulu-Natal, you keep Asboniso Duma, you remove a Pegim Tolo, or vice versa, and that will essentially be the composition of it. But that will entail, if you change people like that, that would entail a dissolution, which is where Fikile Mbalula comes in to say it will both encompass dissolution and reinforcement.
And this will take how long? Because we understand that the NEC will have to reconvene and take this decision as to how exactly this reconfigured PEC would look like.
The ANC officials will meet on Sunday to deliberate on the matter, how it will be implemented, where the new faces will come in, who will be the faces that will come in, who are the faces that are going to be exiting from this particular structure. Are they dissolving? Are they not dissolving? That will ultimately be decided on Sunday in line with the ANC's constitution, particularly clause 12, subsection 12.2.4, which speaks of a dissolution or a suspension of a structure. But in this instance, it would mean a dissolution and then ultimately a reinforcement. Then that would mean on Monday, the ANC's National Working Committee will then convene. They will get a report on the implementation and the decisions taken by the officials of the party. Then during the week, on Thursday or Friday, they meet the structures of the organization. They will start in Gauteng by meeting the structures in Gauteng, then ultimately over the weekend end in KwaZulu-Natal and briefing the structures and introducing the new interim leadership that will ultimately be reconfigured and taking the party forward to try and win the 2026 local government elections.
Samkelo, when listening to the SG, it seemed as though his speech was quite to a certain extent forward-looking into 2027. Just talk us through some of those hints as to what 2027 could look like.
Fikile Mbalula was essentially saying that the discussions in the ANC's National Executive Committee were fraught by divisions, factionalism, saying and alluding that some were calling caucuses in Cape Town, deliberating on how the outlook of the NEC should look like, and saying that it had a futuristic mind, that people were already plotting the ANC's 2027 conference using what should happen within these two particular provinces of KwaZulu-Natal. For instance, I'll take Mtumiseni Ntuli. Mtumiseni Ntuli has been vehemently against the leadership of the ANC in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. Even in his own elections report, he cited that the Secretary-General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, the national organizer, Dumanana, were hindering the ANC's work in the province of KwaZulu-Natal because they were essentially protecting Pegim Tolo, who's the provincial secretary of the province in KwaZulu-Natal, and the provincial leadership, in knowing very well that they were not at the hand or had the task or capabilities to fight against an MK party or have a proper elections machinery within that province. He went further to say that Nomvula Mokonyane, the first Deputy General Secretary of the ANC in Gauteng, was protecting TK Ngiza due to the proximity that she has with TK Ngiza. Those are the reports. Mtumiseni Ntuli, as head of elections, giving an elections outlook report on why the ANC failed dismally, basically blamed the SGO for the ANC's dismal failures in both these particular provinces of KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng. Then you just oppose it today, where Fikile Mbalula is seen to be the one spearheading the ANC being disbanded in the province of KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng. Then you've got individuals.
But he'd probably beg to differ and say this was actually the decision of the NEC in its entirety, and perhaps at the very least what he's doing is expressing the resolution that was adopted by the NEC.
But they first discussed it as officials of the ANC in their own top 7 officials meeting, where Fikile Mbalula, as per the report that he had tabled, had sought for a disbandment of the province of KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, supported by Marupin Ramokgopa, by Gwen Ramokgopa, and also seemingly the president of the ANC, trying to unite these two particular warring factions. On the other side, Gwede Mantashe, Paul Mashatile, Nomvula Mokonyane, arguing against the dissolution. That is where Fikile Mbalula then says those divisions within the officials of the party ultimately cascaded down to the National Working Committee of the party, and then further to the National Executive Committee, which had an outlook of battles that are seemingly forming and factions going towards the 2027 conference of the African National Congress. Was vehemently honest with us and abruptly honest that the factions of 2027 did rear their ugly head in this discussion of the National Executive Committee, which ultimately looked at trying to revive the structures of the party so they could mount a fight come the 2026 local government elections in the two most populated provinces.
Well, Samkele, fortunately, we actually have the ANC's Mahlengi being just to speak to us on some of these statements that you make, that possibly the NEC factional battles started to rear their head when they were discussing whether to disband or reinforce. Thank you very much for that update. That's SABC News' reporter Samkele Maseko giving us the very latest following that media briefing.